Alexandra Eala from the Philippines, and has a huge win for her.
They are calling it the moment that shocked even Nadal's own academy, and if you look closely at the back of Alex Eala's visor, you can see why. There is a line of Tagalog stitched into it, 6 words. Kapag lumago, hindi nahihinto. Once it grows, it cannot be stopped. She said that in her press conference on Thursday, July 2nd, 2026.
Kapag lumago, hindi nahihinto. And that loosely translates to once it grows, it cannot be stopped.
After she had walked off court 12 at the All England Club and into a corner of tennis history that no Filipina had ever occupied before, the score was 3-6, 6-2, 6-0. The opponent was Maya Joint, the Australian who 2 days earlier had beaten Serena Williams. The tournament was Wimbledon, and the round Eala had just reached. For the first time in her career and the first time in the Open era for any Filipino player of either sex, was the 3rd round of a Grand Slam. 24 hours earlier, she had dismantled Renata Zarazua 6-1, 6-2 in 1 hour and 18 minutes. She had not looked like a player spending energy. She had looked like a player saving it. Now we know what she was saving it for. To understand the size of that turn, you have to understand where the ceiling used to be. Before Wimbledon 2026, Alexandra Eala had entered 6 Grand Slam main draws in her career. She had reached the 2nd round exactly once at the US Open last year. She had lost in the opening round of 4 of the 6. This year in January, she had walked into the Australian Open ranked inside the top 75 and walked out after a 6-0 first set the wrong way around. This June, for the first time in her life, she entered a major as a seeded player. The number next to her name on the Wimbledon draw sheet was 29. 12 months earlier, her ranking had been 140. That is the arithmetic of the turning point. The result is the visible surface. Underneath it is a year in which a 21-year-old climbed more than 100 places, won her first grass court title, and quietly stopped being someone the tour talked about as potential and started being someone the tour had to plan around. But the question the sport had begun to ask, gently and without cruelty, was a specific one. Could she string it together at a major, not for 1 round, not for a single upset, for a run, because the record, honestly read, was ambiguous. Her most famous win, the Miami 2025 upset of Iga Swiatek, had happened on a hard court on a Tuesday afternoon in Florida on a stage smaller than a slam. Her Grand Slam ledger, until this week, read like a player still learning how to survive the second week's approach. And then in Melbourne this January, on the day the tennis year began, she was bageled in the first set by Alicia Parks and lost 6-0, 3-6, 2-6. 3rd first-round exit at a major, a rough entry into the season. The doubt the sport was too polite to name out loud was there in the box score anyway. Could she close? That is the honest antagonist of this story. Not a rival, not a villain, a quiet, patient question that had been sitting in the corner of her career for 2 years, waiting for an answer. Thursday on court 12, in a set she was not expected to win in the way she won it, she answered. Start with the visor, because she did. She had it made with the sampaguita, the Philippine national flower, worked into the design, the same flower she wore in her hair at Wimbledon a year ago. She told the press she thinks it matters to carry parts of her culture with her onto the court, not as costume, as equipment. Where she comes from, she said, is a big part of who she wants to become. She said it plainly, without performance, in the room where players usually reach for platitudes. Then she went and played tennis that matched the sentence. Then, look at the seeding. 29th seed, Wimbledon. It is the first Grand Slam of her life where she did not have to work through the draw as an unknown quantity. The tour, before she made history, had already reordered itself around her. That is a structural fact that gets lost in the emotional headlines. Before the crowd saw it, the seeding saw it. Before the seeding saw it, the ranking saw it. Before the ranking saw it, she was doing the work in Manicure. The first round told you something specific. Zarazua is a competitive tour-level player. Eala created 17 breakpoints and converted 4. She struck 22 winners to Zarazua's 11. The match took 1 hour and 18 minutes. She lost her serve 0 times. Those are not the numbers of a player fighting to survive. Those are the numbers of a player working economically. And then walking off court, she noticed the crowd. a corner of Wimbledon that had somehow, on a Tuesday afternoon in the first round, become almost entirely Filipino. "I was really surprised," she said afterwards. "The Filipinos keep surprising me in good ways. I never would have thought that at Wimbledon I would have like a home crowd." Wimbledon tickets are among the hardest to get in sport. That crowd did not gather by accident. It gathered because they had been waiting. Take a breath here, because the next fact is the one that reframes the whole match. Maya Joint, Eala's second-round opponent, had beaten Serena Williams 2 days earlier, 23-time major champion, the R1 result of the tournament. Joint arrived at court 12 as the day's giant killer, unseeded and ranked 87th, but carrying a very specific momentum. Eala's head-to-head with her coming in was 0-1. Joint had won the Eastbourne final between them a year ago. This was not a comfortable draw. This was the hardest possible middle round for a player still in the sport's estimation, being asked whether she could sustain a slam. The first set went to Joint 6-3. On paper, and to most of the room, the question was answering itself. Then the axis moved. Eala took the second set 6-2. Aggressive returning, compact serving, a visible click in her patterns of play, and then in the third set, against the player who had eliminated Serena Williams on this same tournament 48 hours before, she did something that a young player being asked to prove she could close a slam had to do exactly once for the answer to change. She won it 6-0, a bagel, in the decider, on grass, at Wimbledon, against the player nobody wanted to face. That is where the emotional climax of this story sits, and it does not need embellishing. 6 months earlier, at the Australian Open, she had lost the first set of a major 6-0. Now at Wimbledon, she was delivering that same scoreline in a set that made her the first Filipina in the Open era to reach the third round of a Grand Slam. The bagel had been done to her. Now she had learned to do it back. Zoom out one more step. She entered March 2026 ranked 32nd in the world. 12 months earlier, she had been 140th. That is not a spike. That is a climb. The R3 at Wimbledon is not a fluke result attached to a good week. It is the visible peak of a slope that has been steepening for a year. In June, on grass, she won the Birmingham Classic, her first grass court title, the second WTA tier trophy of her young career, with a 3-set comeback in the final. Then she came to London. Then she won her first-round match without dropping serve. Then she erased a set deficit against the woman who had just erased Serena. This is a sequence, not a moment. Now the mentor question, because the framing around this story has invited it. Eala has trained since her early teens at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, Mallorca. Before Wimbledon began, the Academy, the institution that has shaped her tennis since she was 13, posted a message on its social channels calling her journey from the Philippines to Mallorca truly inspiring and wishing her the best for her debut. That is the verified authority voice on this run. Rafael Nadal himself has spoken warmly about her over the past year, and his academy has publicly framed her progress as one of its signature stories. But the specific viral phrasing floating around the internet in the last 24 hours, the idea that Nadal was personally shocked by her Wimbledon run, that he issued some dramatic statement in the moments after her second-round win, is not something that traces back to a verified quote in the primary tennis press as of this recording. What is verified is quieter and, honestly, more useful. The academy that helped build her Wimbledon debut as a story worth telling before she had won a single match at it. When she won 2, the framing didn't need to be adjusted. It just aged well. The people who watched her most closely over the past 8 years were the least surprised in the building. That is often what mentorship looks like when it works. Not shock, recognition. The stakes now are the room she has walked into. Third round of Wimbledon, opponent Iga Swiatek, defending champion, multiple Grand Slam winner across every surface. Head-to-head between them coming in. 1 win apiece. The one Eala win, of course, is Miami, March 2025, a match that made every highlight reel of the year and did not, on its own, prove anything about slams. This match will. Swiatek, in her second-round win over Karolina Pliskova, looked like herself again after a bumpy stretch of form. Eala, asked about it in her press conference on Thursday, did not blink. "It's going to be tough for me," she said. "I'm going to try to make it tough for her as well. She's won a slam on grass. She's won a slam on clay. She's won a slam on hard. So I'm expecting a great challenge, but I think I'm ready for it. I'm ready to face it head on." That is the sentence of a player who understands what room she is in and is not asking to be smaller in it. And zoom out one more time, because this is what this run means beyond her personal career arc. In the open era of tennis, no Filipino singles player of either sex had ever reached the third round of a Grand Slam before this week. In the amateur era, 74 years ago, a 5'1" player named Felicissimo Ampon made the third round at Roland Garros. Since then, silence. Until Court 12, until Thursday, until now. And it is important to say the harder part clearly, because the turning point only means what it means if you know what it was turning from. 6 months and 11 days before she reached R3 at Wimbledon, Alex Eala walked onto Kia Arena at the Australian Open, dropped the first set 6-0 to Alicia Parks, and lost her opening match at a major for the third time in her career. Her post-match interviews were quiet and honest. The Rafa Nadal Academy posted a message afterwards that included the line, "Not all victories are won on court." She had a long spring to get better. She got better. She reached a career-high ranking of 29th in the world. She won on grass, first at the Tour's WTA 125 level in Birmingham, and now on the biggest lawn in the sport. The bagel she lost in January was not narrated forward. It was answered. So where does this leave her, and where does it leave the story? Once it grows, it cannot be stopped. That is the sentence on the back of her visor in her language chosen by her. It reads now less like a slogan and more like a diagnosis. She is no longer the story of a promising junior who won a Grand Slam trophy in the girls' draw and might one day translate it. She is a seeded player at Wimbledon in the third round with a bagel over the woman who eliminated Serena Williams on her ledger. She is 1 hour and 18 minutes of economical first-round tennis and one 6-0 decider away from arriving somewhere the country she plays for has never sent anyone in the Open era. Whether she beats Iga Swiatek on Saturday is not the point of this video. The point is the room she is now standing in. Swiatek is in it. So is Sabalenka. So is Rybakina. So is the entire second week of Wimbledon. Alex Eala is 21 years old. She is seeded. She has closed a set at a major 6-0 against the day's giant killer, and the door she just walked through does not close behind her. That is what a turning point looks like when it is real. Not a fireworks display, a hinge. Thanks for watching. If you want to be here for R3 on Saturday, subscribe, hit the bell, and tell us in the comments how you first found out about Alex Eala. We will read